In this video, we're going to talk about unlimited governments. An unlimited government is a government in which there are no limits set on the ruler's power. They do not govern by the rule of law that balances individual rights with the common good. Many rulers of unlimited governments view individual rights as a threat to the common good. They look at the common good as people doing their part to strengthen the leader, nation, and community. Now, there are a couple different types of unlimited governments. The first type of unlimited government is an authoritarian government. They are unlimited governments in which power is concentrated in the hands of one person, like a dictator or maybe a small group of people. The leaders set laws without the input of the people that they are ruling over. This allows change in decision making to work very quickly in unlimited governments. Leaders, however, are not subject to the rule of law and can break laws without facing any punishment because they answer to no one. At its most extreme, authoritarian rules become totalitarian. A totalitarian government controls all aspects of society. They control the government, the economy, and even the people's personal beliefs and actions. The Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin, China under Mao Zedong, and North Korea under Kim Jong-un are all examples of totalitarian regimes. In these societies, citizens have no way to influence or change the government. The government sometimes maintains the appearance of democratic rule. For instance, in North Korea, they call themselves the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. They hold elections and have a written constitution. But displays of democracy are more pretend to deceive the nation's people or outside observers. Let's talk about the main characteristics of unlimited government. All forms of unlimited government share certain features. In both authoritarian and totalitarian systems, ordinary citizens have very limited political or economic freedoms. Their rights are rarely recognized and protected, and in many cases they are unable to take part in government or even openly express their views. Totalitarian rulers often use force to put down opposition, such as human rights or pro-democracy movements who demand change. Totalitarian rulers can change or ignore constitutions or laws intended to restrict their power. For instance, in Iraq, Saddam Hussein used torture and violence against his political opponents, even though torture was officially banned under Iraqi law. Let's talk a little bit about China's government. In 1949, Chinese leader Mao Zedong created an authoritarian communist system. He imprisoned or killed those who spoke out against his policies. He copied the Soviet-style government with a 5-year plan for industrial development. Early efforts had some success, but widespread food shortages led to the deaths of tens of millions by 1961. In 1966, Mao began a cultural revolution, a violent effort to rid China of all its pre-communist customs and beliefs. They even banned religion in China. Mao's death in 1976 started a gradual retreat from many of his policies. Eventually, Chinese leaders introduced economic and political reforms. Limits were placed on what officials would allow. In 1989, the government violently crushed a peaceful pro-democracy demonstration in China's capital of Beijing. This became known as the Tiananmen Square Massacre. Today, China's leaders balance authoritarian rule, economic growth, and slow political reform. China limits its citizens' basic freedoms and rights, and the government maintains strict control over the media and internet. Many people in governments support human rights, but still human rights abuses occur in both limited and unlimited governments. These abuses include torture, slavery, and even murder. They are most common in countries that are not free or are partially free. In some countries, people can be arrested or mistreated for political dissent. In the countries of Iran, Pakistan, Cuba, El Salvador, and the former Soviet Union, governments have persecuted people for their political views. In unfree or partially free countries, children face the highest risk of becoming victims of human rights violations. In northern Uganda, fighters kidnap thousands of children. The children are made to fight as soldiers or enslaved. The United Nations has taken action to try to protect children. In 1989, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child were adopted. This document focused on trying to keep children free from hunger, neglect, and abuse. Human rights abuses are also common in countries in the process of establishing democracy. In 2013, the Sudanese government demolished several churches in Sudan as part of an effort to force Christians out of the country. Many Sudanese Christians fled to South Sudan in order to avoid persecution. Abuses in democratic countries are far fewer, but they do occur, mostly as a result of inaction. During the civil war in Syria in 2013, the countries of the European Union were criticized for not helping people who were fleeing the war. This left many refugees homeless without food or water. As a country with a democratic government, the U.S. recognizes that respect for human rights promotes peace and deters aggression. The United States has made promoting human rights a major part of its foreign policy. In order to promote human rights worldwide, our State Department uses a three-part approach. First, we try to learn the truth and state the facts about what's happening throughout the world in regards to human rights abuses. Next, we take consistent positions about human rights abuses. And finally, we try to partner with organizations and governments committed to human rights.